So, this look familiar, does it? We take a little trip down memory lane and we're going to do a little update. Deal reached to end illegal strike by New York State prison workers, governor says. Because I can remember when the governor said that you had until Monday to get off the damn picket line and get back to work, or you're going to go to jail. Y'all remember her saying that? I think they gave until Monday, which would be the 3rd. So let's see where we're at with this. And this is something totally unrelated to that. New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced an agreement late Thursday to end a wildcat strike that has roiled the state's prison system for more than a week. Hochul said the state and the union for striking correctional workers agreed to binding terms. After 4 days of mediation talks, the workers must return to work by Saturday to avoid being disciplined for striking, mediator Martin Scheinman in a 7-page memo detailing the agreement known as a binding consent award. The deal includes changes to address staffing shortages and provisions to minimize mandatory 24-hour overtime shifts. Minimize mandatory. You can read between them lines, right? Hochul said the mediation settlement addressed many of the workers' concerns, put the state prison system on the path to safe operations, and prevents further unsanctioned work stoppages. Unsanctioned, they can semantics all they want to. You have the right to redress your government with your grievances. You do. The Constitution actually suggests that that's how you get their attention. So the little memo and shit and all the discipline, that means nothing. My top priority is the safety of all New Yorkers, and for the past 11 days, I have deployed every possible state resource to protect the well-being of corrections officers, the incarcerated population, and local communities across New York, Hochul said in a statement. She is full of shit. The union, the New York State Correctional Officers and Police Benevolent Association, Incorporated, did not immediately respond to a message seeking comment. And their comment will be what? No comment. They got nothing to say on that at this point. Strikers won several key concessions, including a temporary bump in overtime pay. Temporary, meaning you got, here, this last week you got overtime pay. That's your temporary bump. A potential change in pay scale and the suspension of a prison reform law they blame for making prisons less safe. For the next month, under the agreement, overtime will be paid at a rate of 2.5 times instead of the usual 1.5 times regular pay. The state also agreed that within the next 4 months, it will finish its analysis of the union request to bump the salary grade for officers and sergeants. The reform law, which limits the use of solitary confinement, will remain suspended for 90 days while the state evaluates its reinstatement. It will create an unreasonable risk to staff and inmate safety. Incorrect. The state and union also agreed to form a committee to study staffing and operational inefficiencies at each facility in an effort to relieve strain on existing staff, which seems to be bare minimum. Corrections officers began walking out February 17th to protest working conditions. Hochul deployed the National Guard to some prisons to take the place of striking workers. The job action violated the state law barrier strikes by most public employees. Several inmates have died during the strike. Well, we know of one that died because of the COs beating him to death. Another one, not Robert Brooks. Scheinman, a seasoned mediator who serves as the permanent arbitrator for Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, and their unions, said the sides demonstrated good faith and enormous commitment to finding workable solutions for the workforce. What has become clear during the mediation is the relationship between the parties and the workforce is strained, Scheinman wrote in a memo explaining the agreement. No single issue, law, or policy entirely explains the current situation. It is obvious this erosion did not happen all at once. No, it's been going on forever, and it's a complete shit show. The National Guard will draw down from state prisons as correctional officers return to work. In the agreement, National Guard members who remain in place will be used to prevent prison workers from being mandated to work 24-hour overtime shifts. And that's where we were on February 28th. Fast forward. March 4th. New York prison system struggles with strike amid outrage over high-profile inmate's death. Well, remember what we were saying earlier? And here we are again. Now, this is from another one that I've already done, but Anyway, New York State's Department of Corrections Community Supervision is struggling to keep striking officers on the job as it grapples with the fallout of 2 high-profile inmates' death and reports of violence at the hands of its workers. Now, this one here is going to seem familiar from the video I just put up, like, I don't know, an hour before this one, but go with me. State police are investigating the death of a 22-year-old inmate, Messiah Nantwi, who was housed at Mid-State Correctional Facility in Marcy, about 50 miles east of Syracuse. Authorities have not released the cause of death, but New York Times reported that 9 prisoners said the inmate had been brutally beaten by corrections officers. Governor Kathy Hochul said Monday that the deeply troubling incident is under investigation, and State Department of Corrections Commissioner Daniel Martuscello III described Nantwi's death as tragedy. 15 staff members have been placed on leave, probably paid, in connection with the death, Hochul said Tuesday. 11 were placed on leave initially, according to the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. While the investigation into the incident is ongoing, early reports point to extreme disturbing conduct leading to Mr. Nantwi's death, and I'm committed to accountability for all involved. Are you? Where's the body cam footage? Where's the camera footage? The people of New York extend our deepest condolences to Mr. Nantwi's family and loved ones, Hochul said in a release Tuesday. But others say his death is the latest consequence of a broken prison system. The incident underscores the inherent culture of staff violence that pervades New York prisons and the urgent need for transparency, accountability, and reform. The Legal Aid Society, a nonprofit law firm that represents low-income New Yorkers, said in a statement on Monday exactly what they don't want: transparency, accountability, or reform. Nantwi's death comes less than 2 weeks after 6 New York prison workers were charged with murder in connection with the death of Robert Brooks, a 43-year-old black man who died in December after being beaten by corrections officers at Marcy Correctional Facility, less than a mile from Mid-State. Also, wasn't Brooks transferred from Mid-State to Marcy? I'm almost thinking there's a connection there. Body camera footage of officers beating Brooks while his hands are cuffed behind him lead to intense criticism over the violence in the state's prison system at the hands of corrections officers. To me, the disturbing thing is the sense of normalcy, Special Prosecutor Bill Fitzpatrick previously said. The way that everyone was just going about their business as if this was acceptable behavior. They were, and some of them were standing back looking and laughing and pointing, the little nurses. The officers were accused of acting with depraved indifference to human life. According to a grand jury indictment, the defendants pled not guilty, the prosecutor said. And I'm still waiting on this to kind of wrap up to do a video on what's going on with them degenerates. After visiting the facility where Brooks was beaten, Hochul announced a $400 million investment to install fixed cameras and distribute body-worn cameras at all of the state's correctional facilities. Yes, because the answer to shitty government is always more government. Statewide prison strike. The increased scrutiny comes amid a wide-scale, weeks-long strike by corrections officers in New York State. The officers are demanding better pay, staffing, and security measures. The striking officers are taking issue with the ongoing violence in facilities, mandatory overtime, lack of work-life balance, and a policy that limits the amount of time inmates can spend in solitary confinement, according to James Miller, the Public Relations Director of the New York State Corrections Officers and the Police Benevolent Association. Just as the death of Brooks and Nantwi have prompted concerns about inmate safety, some corrections officers say the working conditions in these facilities have caused them to question their own safety. In January, Upstate Correctional Facility was locked down and searched after several incidents resulted in 30 staff members being sent to the hospital for treatment. The search turned up 11 weapons and 75 suspicious pieces of contraband that were tested for possible drugs, according to the Corrections Department. Well, maybe staffing are having issues because they're beating people to death. The department recorded 1,938 assaults on staff statewide in 2024, up from 1,043 assaults in 2019. The same report lists 2,697 assaults on inmates, up from 1,267 in 2019. See my point? You see my point right here? They are tired of the bullshit. State union leaders agree that the strike, which began 2 weeks ago, violates rules for state employees, the Associated Press reported. New York State Public Employees Fair Employment Act, sometimes referred to as the Taylor Law, prohibits strikes by public employees. Again, you have the right. The Constitution, matter of fact, says you should redress your grievances with your government. Issue for New York is these COs are redressing their grievances and New York don't like it, which is why they haven't put them in jail, because they said, come Monday, if you are not back, you're terminated, and we're going to cancel. You're not going to get your last pay, and we're going to cancel your insurance and your kids' insurance retroactively. They cannot do that. Sorry, they can talk all the talk they want to. They know they can't walk the walk, which is why we are still here on March 3rd. The strike has had a pronounced impact throughout the state. Visitation at all state correctional facilities was canceled at some point during the strike. Accommodations for religious observances like Ramadan have been impacted as well. Hochul even called in the National Guard to supplement the workforce at facilities. On Friday, Governor Hochul and the Corrections Department announced that an agreement had been made and urged workers to return to work. The agreement outlined efforts to address staffing issues and minimize mandatory 24-hour overtime shifts. But by Sunday, some officers remained on strike, and the Corrections Department announced it would begin terminating officers who, with unauthorized absences of more than 11 consecutive shifts. Now it is up to each individual officer to decide to return to work, Miller told CNN. Wow, seems to me like they're pushing them days out. Because here we're now 11 days into it. First it was 7, 9, now we're up to 11, and they had till, what was Monday? This is Tuesday. They had till Sunday night, and now we're into Tuesday, and we're here. Lawsuit alleges New York State Prison violated Constitution and prisoners' rights. So let's see what this has to say.
The New York Civil Liberties Union, known as the NYCLU, has filed this lawsuit against docs, claiming prisoners have not had access to legal services since the strikes began more than 2 weeks ago. The suit says denying legal representation violates the U.S. Constitution.
For the past, it's going on 16 days, we have not been able to have any legal phone calls with our clients, or very few.
Karen Murtaugh is the executive director of Prisoners Legal Services of New York. She says it's more than just not being able to talk on the phone.
We have not been able to go into the prisons at all to see what is actually happening in the prisons. But we have gotten hundreds of panic phone calls from loved ones and family and friends about what they're hearing.
The lawsuit mentions at least 5 examples of lawyers being unable to reach prisoners due to the strike. In one case, NYCLU attorney Megan Porter says a lawyer struggled to get in touch with a client ahead of a legal deadline.
There's no clarity or guarantee that if a deadline comes up and they miss it because they can't access the client, if they can't get a client's signature on time that they need for, some sort of filing, or even if a client doesn't have the ability to get physically to their court date, because sometimes the client is required to appear in person at court, there's no guarantee that the court is going to give them a pass.
Even though there is a lack of staffing inside prisons due to the strikes, Murtaugh says since thousands of National Guard members have been deployed to the prisons, legal representatives should be allowed in.
But they do have enough staff to allow PLS to have a legal phone call, or to allow one attorney to come into the prison and sit in the visiting room.
Officials from the Department of Corrections say they cannot comment, citing pending litigation. Reporting in studio, Ireland Walker, News 10, ABC.
Thank you, Ireland. Of course, because they're going to have no comment. And let's look through here and see if there's anything they missed. Clarity, deadline, lawyers, prison, pending litigation. Yeah, that one pretty much summed it up. But yeah, here we are. Remember, they're going to lock them up. Here we are, March 5th. And they are still striking because they're tired of the crap. Anyway, let me know what you think about this one in the comments. Again, 90% of people that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. Again, you are right there at your computer. Again, you have your phone in your hand. All you got to do, let's see right here, there'll be a subscribe button somewhere. Click it. Like I do, you got your phone in your hand, hit that subscribe button, and I'll stop harassing you. Let me know what you think about this one, and I'm out.